Dolphins fans, we need to have a chat. Let's get into this. Thanks for checking out the channel. I appreciate it. Make sure, if you have questions during this or you want to say something, leave a comment, leave a like. If you know anybody, tell them about the channel. Help me get some subscriptions going, and let's get this channel growing up a little bit. As this off-season starts and as we start going into this farther, I'm seeing so much on Twitter and Facebook and YouTube of people and their suggestions and their takes and their conclusions on things. And there's so much that I disagree with, and I'm not trying to pick on anybody specific, so I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to call people stupid or say that their takes are absolutely ridiculous, but some of these takes are absolutely ridiculous. We're in a situation where it's not ideal. Obviously, the situation with Miami is not ideal. Dolphins fans are extremely jaded, not just because of the last couple years, but because of the last 25 or 30 years. And that's, there's no other team right now that's quite going through that as much as we are. And that's not a badge of honor. I'm not putting that on my chest and bragging about it, believe me. But I'm trying to use that as a reason why possibly there's some extreme frustration on the part of our fan base especially, and maybe perhaps some desperation in the things that they're thinking and suggesting and wanting to go forward with this team. And this is no time for panic. And that's kind of what this whole video is about. Where do we go from here? What should we be trying to do, trying to accomplish? Ladies and gentlemen, we were 8-9 last year. That's a losing football team. And there's a lot of things that we're going to need to proceed into next season. And I'm just going to kind of touch on a lot of this stuff as we go. The main thing that I wanted to talk about first is, yes, Tyreek Hill did issue an apology. No, I'm not going to make a dedicated video about it. I've made enough Tyreek content for this last month to last me for the rest of the off season. So barring something happening where he gets traded or something like that, I'm not going to talk about it much. But yes, he did publicly apologize for his comments, and he apologized publicly to a couple of his teammates. And I'm sure that all came with an apology in private to his teammates before that. I'm not even doubting that at all. I do think that actually did happen. However, man, I am parched. I just got off of work, walked in the door, and my voice is all scratchy, so bear with me here. I need to take a big swig of this big old bottle of Mountain Dew here and kind of brace myself for what I'm about to get into. Oh, all right. So, Tyreek Hill and the Miami Dolphins, and more importantly, Tua right now. I want to start with the quarterback. Let's get through this. The more people that comment, or I see more and more people commenting, Tua sucks, Tua sucks, Tua sucks. And I said it a bunch, and I'm not a Tua apologist, but at the same time, you cannot say that. You can't. So let's just stop with that. Trade Tua, no, we're not trading Tua. It's not going to happen. It would absolutely kill our cap situation if we did. So let's just let go of that. Let's move on past it. If you're a Dolphins fan and you're sitting at your computer or your phone and you're clamoring for Tua to be traded or for us to cut Tua, it doesn't look good on you because it shows that you're not understanding a few things that are pretty important. Number one, cap space. Number two, contracts. And number three, quarterback play. Can we see a few things wrong with Tua? Yes, I can see a few things wrong with Tua. The main thing that I see that worries me, and it should worry you as the fan base, as a fan of this team, is can Tua stay healthy? And that's a concern. That's a definite concern that we should all have, is Tua needs to stay healthy. Are there things he can do to do that? Yes, absolutely. There are definitely things Tua can do to stay healthy. Or at least to give himself a better chance. I mean, there's always freak accidents. I mean, look at Jalen Phillips. The 2 injuries that he's had weren't even his fault. It wasn't even incidental contact that caused it. It was another player on our team hurting him. So I'm not saying that Tua is innocent of all things that involve his play. Tua could definitely do things to be better and to be more available for his team. Number one is staying healthy. And how can he do that? Well, he can stop taking unnecessary risks. Number one, that would be huge. He needs to get better at taking himself out of situations where he can get hurt. Because when he puts himself in those situations, he gets hurt. And then we're without a starting quarterback. And then all kinds of other things start to unravel. So the first thing, for the quarterback room, Tua needs to stay healthy. Absolutely. And he's got to work on that. Now, he's not alone in that responsibility because there are 5 other players on the field with him that are solely and personally responsible for keeping Tua healthy and safe and upright. Say it with me. Offensive line. That's it. That's their job. Keep Tua healthy. Keep him safe. Keep him upright. Give him a chance to positively affect the game. Give him the chance to stay in the game and be a leader. Once Tua scrambles out and makes a stupid decision, that's not on the line. But they need to give him time to do the things that he's supposed to do as a quarterback of this team. Quarterback is a leader on the field. Once that ball is snapped, there is nothing that a coach can do or an owner or a GM can do to help Tua and the football team. It's all on the players on the field. Tua is the leader of the players on the field. He needs to be there to help. So, number one, Tua stays healthy. Has to. Everything else that has to do with his play can stay the exact same. Let's be real about it. Everything else can stay the exact same. His talent level, things he does well, things that he might not do as well as other quarterbacks, like the deep ball, whatever you want to say there, it doesn't need to change for us to have success. We can win, and I'm going to say it, and I want you guys to really think about it before you disagree on this. You can go, by all means, if you want to disagree with what I'm about to say, please do. Tell me why, though. Give me reasons. Tua is good enough to win a Super Bowl. Period. He's good enough. He needs more time to throw the ball. More time than 1.87 seconds, which is what he was averaging at the end of the season there. No time to throw the ball. Why? It brings me to my next point, our offensive line. This is a big issue. The biggest issue on our team is our offensive line because not only does it affect our quarterback and our passing game. How does it affect the passing game? Well, when you cannot give proper protection to your quarterback, he's going to have to scramble and innovate. Innovate is fine. Quarterbacks are expected to do that, and Tua doesn't do that badly at it. In fact, he's number 1 in the NFL in completion percentage when he's under pressure. Number 1. Just like the jersey. Number 1. So it's not that he can't do that, but he just doesn't have enough time really to make anything positive any positive yards or middle to deep passes. Certainly not that, because our receivers don't have enough time to get down the field. That's how little time Tua has to throw the ball. And that falls on our offensive line. We have a lot of trash on our offensive line. So hopefully our team is going to get rid of the trash this year. Liam Eichenberg, bye-bye. Robert Jones, bye-bye. See you guys later. Kick rocks. Get down the road with it. Half these players on our offensive line should not be here next year. Patrick Paul, keep him. He's going to be good. Teron Armstead looks like he's coming back. He sounds like it the way he was talking. I would say that Teron is going to be back next year. Teron needs to have a very healthy offseason, and he needs to get his knees healthy. But if Tehran can play 75 to 80% of the games, I think he'll be okay. Tehran is a great football player. He's a dog. He'll fight. So, Patrick Paul, Teron Armstead, keep him. Aaron Brewer, he's a little small. And me and Curtis with Ace Per Head, we talk about this ad nauseum. Constantly discuss Aaron Brewer and how he is a smaller center. And he has a hard time dealing with power and pushing people around. But he does an all right job. He's a good center. He does well. I would be okay with keeping him. And I know most of you guys who especially pay attention to the offensive line would agree. So Aaron Brewer, Patrick Paul, Teron Armstead, keep him. Austin Jackson, I'm not a huge, bona fide fan of Austin Jackson, but he's definitely better than what we've had at the other tackle spot. So let's keep Austin Jackson. So all we really need is maybe a couple depth players, maybe another tackle, maybe a backup center. But these can be fill-ins, rookies, whatever. It's not a big deal. The main thing that we need for the offensive line is 2 guards. That's it. 2 guards. But they need to be good guards. Personally, what I would suggest is, and I'm trying to go through this as fast as I can, I'm sorry. Personally, what I would suggest is getting 1 good offensive guard in the draft. Maybe third round would be ideal. 4th round if we trade our 1st round pick down to split into more draft picks. 3rd or 4th round, there's going to be some good guards there. I think that would be fantastic. Then maybe pick up another guard that's got some experience, that's a solid veteran, not too old, no injury history. There's going to be some of them in the free agency. I think we can grab one there. So you're looking at that. Get a couple guards, some depth pieces, some practice squad players, some developmental players that we can put in behind this starting offensive line that we've just created and go from there. Now, this is the easiest and best way to do this. That's the quickest way to fix our offensive line. Or at least make it a top 12, top 15 offensive line, which would be light years better than what we have had. Our line has progressively gotten worse the last 3 years, to the point where now we can't even throw a pass longer than 15 yards because our quarterback does not have the time to throw the ball. I don't care what quarterback we put behind there in place of Tua, you're not going to see anything much better than what we're seeing. You put Patrick Mahomes back there, it's going to be the same thing. We saw what happens to Patrick Mahomes when he's under pressure. He had one of the worst games of his career. I guarantee you it wouldn't be any better with Patrick Mahomes. That's an example from the Super Bowl about what our quarterback play has been like, and what we have, and what we could have, and what we need. The other responsibility of the offensive line is the run game. Now, we have a very good running back room. Raheem Mostert probably not going to be back. If he is, great. I would be happy to have Raheem Mostert back as a 2 or 3 running back. Jalen Wright and Devon Achane are our number 1 and number 2 running backs, as they should be. Jalen Wright has beast mode in him. He has power. He's a one-cut running back, and he's got some power for the inside runs. He just needs a couple linemen to block for him. We've seen flashes of it, and if we had a better offensive line, you would see Jalen Wright taking over games. Mark my words. If you don't believe me on that, mark my words. Our offensive line is responsible for our passing game and our running game. We have the pieces to make this good. It's just we need to fix that offensive line and tweak it a bit. We do that, and even if we change nothing else, don't change the receivers, don't change the tight end, don't change the running backs, don't change the quarterback. If we change nothing else except for the offensive line, we would be a night and day different offense. Guaranteed. If you disagree, please tell me what you're thinking. I would love to hear it, and I'd like to interact with you and discuss this with you. For wide receivers and tight end, I do think we need another tight end, but not for catching balls. We have one of the best ones in the NFL, if not the best, in my personal opinion. Jonnu Smith is a beast. The only downside to Jonnu Smith is he's not the greatest blocker. Now, when we get into the goal line situations, it's good to have a Jonnu Smith to get some flat passes or some, some crossing patterns going, or, go find an open spot passing like that. But we also need one that can block, one that can stay home on the line and give a little bit of extra protection. Pick up a robber off the corner, pick up a corner blitz, or pick up a middle linebacker sliding through the tackle hole, something like that. We need one of those tight ends. The tight ends we have aren't going to cut it. So I propose keeping Jonnu Smith and dumping the rest. Draft one in the draft, a good blocking tight end in the draft. There's going to be a few of them, and I guarantee you one's going to be available to us. 4th, 5th, 6th round. We have that ability to pick one up. We need to do that. It's a blocking tight end, so it's a player that could come in from the draft and make an impact immediately. He would be able to play. For receivers, we're set. We don't need to change anything. Even if Tyreek Hill goes, I think we're okay at receiver. I know you guys think I'm crazy. Even if Tyreek Hill goes, we're good at wide receiver. The only thing that I think would be cool is if in the later rounds of the draft, if there was a tall receiver, there's a bunch of receivers in this draft that are taller and bigger. If we picked one up for development and for sliding into certain situational plays during the season, it would be good to have a big, tall receiver. Somebody with a little bit of beef on him. Somebody who can go up and get that 50-50 ball. But other than that, we're good there. So if you look at our offense as a whole, nothing really needs to change there except for our offensive line. It'd be good to have a few tweaks here and there, but offensive line, that's the main thing. And if I narrow that down even farther, I'm looking at those two offensive guard spots. That's what I'm looking at, other than depth pieces. I'm getting myself all worked up. Everybody's worried. Everybody's freaked out. But it's just not that... It's not that confusing this year. It's very clear what we need and what has to happen. So I've talked about the offense. As far as defense goes, I mean, we need a couple things, but once again, this isn't as bad as it has been. I do think that Javon Holland is gone. Jordan Poyer is gone. We need safeties badly. My big suggestion, if we didn't bring players from cornerback and move them to safety, personally, I think that Jalen Ramsey would be an amazing safety. But that's beyond the point. I'm not going to get into that. It's probably not going to happen. So we'll treat it like it's not. You go to free agency, you get a safety. You'll be able to get one in the $4 to $6 to $8 million range. Very inexpensive, and it would be a huge pickup for us to pick up a safety in free agency. Then you look in the draft and pick one up there as well. You pick up 2 safeties, one in the draft, one in free agency. So far, all I've suggested is 2 players in free agency. A good guard and a good safety. You're looking at maybe $14 million for both of those players, ish, somewhere in there. It's not that bad. Now I'll get into the money stuff in a second here, but that's basically what we need there. Cornerback, I really think we're pretty okay. I'd be cool with picking one up in the late rounds of the draft. Maybe looking at the free agent board for somebody who's not going to cost anything, maybe a league minimum player. Depth pieces, that's fine. But for cornerback, we're okay. We're okay. Breathe. Storm Duck is going to be night and day better than he was last year, and he wasn't bad last year. He played well for a rookie, for an undrafted free agent, and the coolest name ever. I'm getting a Storm Duck jersey. It's happening, man. I like the way that guy plays, and we talk about needing dogs on this team. Storm Duck is a dog. He is a fighter, and I love watching him play. And he's going to be better because he's going to have all offseason to work with the team, to develop his skills and his play set. He's going to do well this year. So if Storm Duck stays healthy, watch him this year and tell me if I'm wrong once we start playing games. But I'm telling you, he's going to be good. Storm Duck's good. Kader Kuhu had a little bit of a awakening this year. He's playing a whole lot better, especially in the last half of the season. After that Green Bay game, man, he really stepped up. And from watching the All-22 on these games, Kader Kuhu played great. Not good. Not mediocre. He played great. in after that Packers game. He played great in all the games after that. So we have that. We have Jalen Ramsey. He only had 2 bad games all year. That's it. He played well all year. And Kendall Fuller, he's good too. Maybe not as good as Jalen Ramsey, obviously, but he had a few games that weren't great, but he played well all year. So I think we're okay at cornerback. Moving down towards the line, our middle linebackers might need a middle linebacker. $4 or $5 million, $6 million, somewhere in there in the free agency. Or even if you find a decent one in the draft, I'd be okay with that too. Shouldn't be too difficult to find a middle linebacker to plug in. And I'm not talking about total depth piece there. I'm talking about someone who could put in significant time with the linebackers we have, and I think we'll be okay. Now, moving outside to the outside linebackers, we're going to be okay there, especially if we hang on to the ones we have. Jalen Phillips will be back. Chop Robinson will be there. If I don't talk about anybody else, and if I just talk about Chop Robinson and Jalen Phillips on each side of that line, oh my goodness. We're talking killers. It's going to be intimidating. So I'm really happy with that, especially with Bradley Chubb coming back. If they trade him, okay, that gives us a little more cap space to find somebody else. Maybe pick up a defensive end, or I'm sorry, inside line or outside linebacker in the draft. That'd be okay. But what we don't need is some high dollar veteran that we're going to give all our money to. So outside linebacker, I think we're pretty much okay. Moving to inside defensive line, that's where we need some help. That's where we should be spending our first pick. If we stick in the first draft and we don't trade down with it to get more draft picks, if we don't trade down and we're sitting there with that first pick, that needs to go to a defensive lineman. An inside defensive lineman, a big man, a 340 pound, 6'6" beast. We need somebody huge. That's pretty much it. You can get some depth there if you want, but we need to use that first draft pick on an inside defensive lineman, especially with the way this draft is looking like it's going to go. That would make the most sense. So, after that, we could probably replace our punter because Jake Bailey sucks. Replace the punter. I mean, beyond that, I just walked through the entire team. There's not much that we have to do. There are some definite pieces that we need, yes. But this isn't end of the world type stuff, especially considering the off seasons we've gone through the last couple years. Now, the next thought is, oh, Dirk, you've got your $11 million in the hole for your salary cap. How are you going to pay that? I'm figuring roughly $25 million that we're going to have to spend to plug up these holes and actually have a team worthy of putting that product on the field. I think that's about where we're going to have to be. We're $11 million in the hole. Well, first things first, salary cap is going to be raised about $30 to $35 million this year. We'll find out later exactly what that number is, but it's going to be raised because the NFL made a gob of money this year. So expect that salary cap to jump $35 million. We're $10 or $11 million in the hole, so you're going to see about $25 million out of the hole above the salary cap that we're going to be soon, without changing anything. So with that, cut a couple players out, get some rookies onto some rookie contracts. We're going to be okay, guys. Don't worry about the money too much. This ain't the year for that. If we cut Tyreek or if we cut Tua or something stupid like that, yes, then we need to worry about the money because we're going to be killed cap-wise. Or if we sign, I don't know, Myles Garrett, something like that, or Cooper Kupp. We do some crap like that, we are going to be hurting. It's going to hurt so bad. I'm seeing a lot of talk about sign Deebo Samuel. He wants a trade. Do not sign Deebo Samuel. My goodness. We have a player like that. Maybe not as tough or strong, as big as Deebo Samuel. But that's what Devon Achane's for. A dual threat in the run game and the pass game. Someone who's got moves, speed, power, everything. That's Devon Achane. Maybe not as much power as Debo, but I'll take that trade. I'll take Devon Achane over Debo Samuel any day. So we're seeing fans starting to get desperate. We're seeing fans starting to say, let's trade for this. Ooh, here's some player candy over here. Ooh, there's some more player candy. I want. No, don't. You don't want. You don't want. What you want is guards. You want offensive line depth. You want inside defensive line depth. That's what we want. I've been talking about this with Curtis from Mace Per Head a lot. It always seems to be part of our discussions on the live streams I do every week with him. And me and Curtis agree 100% on this. If we don't trade draft picks, if we don't trade our first round for more draft picks, the way our first 4 draft picks need to go is number 1 in the first round, inside defensive lineman. Number 2, offensive guard. Number 3, tight end. And number 4, offensive guard. That should be the draft for the first 4 rounds right there. That should be our first 4 picks. And that addresses our 2 biggest needs immediately. Then we have a little bit of freedom for the rest of the draft. Maybe even go best player available for a couple of those. Hopefully best player available lines up with some of our needs. And that would be even better. And if you look at the draft board, at least right now, we've got a pretty good chance of having a lot of BPAs show up right when we need them. So it's not looking that bad. And I'm not saying this to give false hope. I'm saying this because this is genuinely not a horrible situation to be in. Now, if we were in this exact position 2 years ago with that draft, we would be in trouble because the draft just didn't line up with what we needed. This year, the draft lines up pretty well with what we need. And we get those players on rookie contracts, that's going to help a bunch. Basically, the whole point of this is to say our physical needs on this team aren't that bad. They're handleable. Handleable. Is that even a word? Handleable? I don't think that's a word. Handleable. No, I don't know. Every time I say it, it sounds worse. It's doable. This isn't that bad. Now, can Chris Grier avoid the eye candy that our fans seem to not be able to? Because if Chris Grier is doing what he normally does, ooh, player candy. If he's doing that, then we're going to be in trouble. If he goes and tries to make a huge splash in free agency, we're in trouble. If he cuts Tyreek and cuts Tua, we're in trouble. I could understand if he cuts Tyreek, even though we would take a little bit of a hit there. But I could understand it just because of what's happened. Personally, I don't think Tyreek's going to get traded. I think we're going to be with him this year. We're going to have Tyreek this year. And I think this year will be a lot better for Tyreek. I think that he did mean what he said. I think he did mean the apology. And I think he does get it. But time will tell. I mean, I can't tell you guys for sure, on that matter. All I can tell you is what I think and what I've gathered from listening to him talk and what I would assume happened in the locker room after all this happened when he talked to the players. I would assume he did apologize, and I would assume he means it. And I think that he knows that he is on thin ice. I think Tyreek knows he's on thin ice more than Chris Grier does, which is scary. Those physical needs are doable. We can handle the physical needs on this team. The more important thing, and I talked about it in the last video, so I'm not going to get too crazy into it. The more important thing, though, is identity. Mindset and identity. I've talked about it in the last video ad nauseum, but really quick, mindset is a personal decision to have a certain attitude towards something. We need players to have a proper mindset. And if we have enough individual players with a mindset of being a dog and a fighter and not giving up and playing hard till the whistle, if we have enough of that, we will start to develop the proper identity for winning football. It's that simple. Mindset makes identity. Individual mindset makes a team identity. That's more important than any physical need we have right now. So I think that our coaches and our players need to worry about that first and foremost right now. The ones that are on the team, they need to worry about that. They need to focus on that. They need to get to work. And then the players that we add through draft or free agency can come in and see that identity and that mindset that our players have, and they'll match it. And if they don't, they'll fall off. But that's what's needed. And that's where I'm at with it. But what do you guys think? What do you think we need? What do you think we should do in the draft, in free agency? What do you think about this team's mindset and this team's identity? Players need to be held accountable. That will help with mindset for sure. And I think it's going to happen this year. Maybe not do it or you're fired type of thing. I don't know if that's going to happen yet, but I definitely think Mike McDaniel is going to make a step towards being a little more in your face about it. And I think he should be. And believe me, I'll be very happy to see that if it does happen. I'll be disappointed beyond all hell if it doesn't, because it's needed. We have good coaches. McDaniel is a good coach, and he's getting better. He's learning. He's not the best. He's not the most ideal. No. But he's what we have. He's not going anywhere, so I'm not going to continue to complain about it. All I'm going to talk about is what he can do to get better. He can clean up his play calling. He can simplify that playbook just a little bit. Maybe bleed off some of this motion stuff so that Tua has time to call an audible if he needs to. Tua is smart enough to call an audible. He just hasn't had time. If he has time, I think we're going to see a little bit different type of offense. We fix that offensive line. Tua will have time to do these things after the snap and before the snap. He'll have time to change things. Make a better pass. Make a deeper pass. Get that receiver that's over the top that just needs an extra step and an extra second before he throws that ball. He'll be able to do that. I needed to get that out. Thanks for watching. I appreciate it. Leave a comment, leave a like, subscribe. It all helps out. I hope you guys have a fantastic rest of your week. Fins up and stay hopeful.